Hi, this is Randy Randall of No Age and host of the podcast Hyphenate with Randy Randall. I want to welcome our newest sponsor of the show, DistroKid. DistroKid helps musicians get their music on all the major streaming platforms, and artists keep 100% of their royalties. Hyphenate listeners get 30% off at distrokid.com/VIP/hyphenate. Again, that's distrokid.com/VIP/HYPHENATE. Go get your music streaming everywhere now. Yo, welcome to Hyphenate with Randy Randall. That is me. On today's show, my guest is the one and only John Herndon. You know him as the drummer of the hugely influential, seminal post-rock Chicago outfit Tortoise. I met John, probably 5 years ago, working on a musical project. He had moved to LA, and I knew he was friends of friends, and I was working on something with Mike Manzuri for some skateboarding project, and he had talked about wanting a sound like something like Tortoise. I was like, oh, well, I know John's friends of friends. Let me see if I can reach out. And he came down to Santa Ana, and we recorded some epic drums that night and used those as part of the composition that we'd cut up and chopped up and everything. And he was so nice and so sweet that we kept in touch over the years, and he's been incredible to get to know. I also played in a small trio with him and Ray Barbie for some Thomas Campbell live soundtrack things. We did one show in Long Beach, and I don't know when that would have been, 2019 maybe, 2018, no, maybe 2019. And also did another one up near Ojai or Santa Barbara area. And yeah, epic dude. And the reason he is on Hyphen is he is not just a drummer, he is also an incredible artist. He did the artwork for the Tortoise record TNT, little figure on the front there. And he also has a prolific burgeoning, or no, I shouldn't say burgeoning, but prolific, ever expanding, I think is what I was looking for, art practice with showing paintings locally here in LA and in galleries all over the country. He really is such an awesome dude. He also works as a tattoo artist as well. So if you want to get tattooed by John Herndon, go find him online, or if you're in the LA area, you can search him out and find him. It's like the A-Team hiding in the underground of Los Angeles. If you can find him, you can hire him, you can get a tattoo from him, and hear stories about Tortoise. But I really appreciate him taking the time to sit down and chop it up with me, talking about his journey on the drums and in the visual art world as well. So I hope you dig it. Take it away, John. Mr. John Herndon, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mr. Randy Randall.
It's great to see you. Where are you right now?
This is my garage studio.
Beautiful. This is my garage studio.
Oh, I've seen it on Instagram. It looks really nice in the pictures.
Everything's more interesting that's not beside me. The stuff right behind me is just boring, sound baffling. But yeah,
I don't know. There's a Masters of the Universe towel back there that looks. Yeah. Is that a beach towel?
It's a fleece blanket.
Oh, nice, excellent,
yeah,
great.
Yeah. I think it's also in Spanish. It's one of my prized possessions.
Oh, hell yeah, nice.
Yeah. You have several paintings. I'm assuming are some of those yours?
Yeah, these are all my stuff. Yeah.
So drum stool and painting, and then is that tattoo equipment on that shelf in the far back in the rack?
That's all painting equipment. Painting supplies.
Okay.
Yeah, I was working on those pieces for my friend Annie Schonsberg, and I had a little pop-up show couple months ago at this place in Highland Park. The stuff was only up for a couple days, and obviously none of it sold. But it's all the stuff is going to be hanging there's a bar in Highland Park called the York, and it's going up the second Saturday in March, and it'll be up for 2 months.
Awesome.
So if you didn't get, thanks.
I want to see it in person, though. Yeah.
Fun pieces.
So you are a drummer and a visual artist. Is that how you categorize it, or is there a tattoo artist as well? Falls under that same category. How do you define your mediums? So now I got my new word. I'm gonna show it off like I've thought of
it. Musician and visual artist.
Musician. Okay. Yeah. All around musician. Yeah. Let's start at the beginning of the talent sort of explosion. Like what came first, the music or visual arts?
Visual arts for sure came first. I remember it was like a thing in grade school. Friends and I would just sit around and see who could draw the Fantastic Four the best or whatever, we were all kind of Marvel Comics fiends. And, we would take our allowance money or whatever little money that we earned when we were like 8 years old or whatever, and go to the comic store and buy Marvel Comics, and then take them to school. And when we had some free time, we would just draw and see who could draw like the best thing or whatever. And I remember when I was kind of like not the greatest at it, but it kind of made me determined to keep going. I was like, okay, if this is an uphill battle, I'm just gonna keep going. It was interesting to do it and just sort of see the progress. I was never blessed with any kind of like talent like right out of the gate, but I just kept working at it because it was interesting to me.
It's amazing. I feel like it's so many people's stories I feel like are similar in that, it's something you try, but like, you're saying the persistence, I think is what sets you apart.
Yeah. I think that is part of my personality, is just persisting.
That's amazing. And then where do you go from there? So you're in high school, kind of drawing. Does music enter around at that point, or what sort of is the next phase of that journey?
Yeah, I wonder how that kind of worked out. I was always drawing. My brother was drawing. My brother took an interest in playing the flute. So he started playing the flute, and in band was playing in flute. Also, like he and I would kind of get together and put on little shows for our parents. We would like put on like weird disco vests and like, I don't know, like plaid pants and sing like Jeremiah Was a Bullfrog with like tambourines and stuff.
Night. Hell yeah.
Well, yeah, we would while everybody would sit there patiently after dinner or whatever.
They loved it, I'm sure. Yeah.
And then I got really into like disco came around, and Saturday Night Fever was big, and so I started like just dancing in my room. I would like make up all these like disco dances and stuff. And kind of around the same time, I just started telling everybody that I played the drums. If I met somebody like, and they were a musician, I would be like, yeah, I play the drums, but I never did.
That's amazing. You like the way it sounded, or just felt like an identity to say you were a drummer, or what would you think was motivation looking back now with all these years behind you?
I knew it was coming somehow. I knew that like I was a drummer, even
Manifest destiny.
Yeah, it was coming down the pipe, and I could see it real clearly. So I was like, yeah, that's me.
Did you want to be a drummer? I mean, obviously you did. You were introducing yourself, but you thought about it.
Yeah.
What was a drummer to you? Like, was there a specific inspiration, like an animal from the Muppets, or I mean, are you looking at Ringo, Keith Moon? Was there that kind of idea, or did that not matter?
Yeah. Well, for sure, Keith Moon was an early fave. I really loved The Who as a youngster. I had some friends that were super into The Who. Ringo, like around age 8, my dad took me to see Stevie Wonder and the Rolling Stones on Goat's Head Soup tour, I think, maybe at Boston Square Gardens. And that was really mind blowing. So I kind of came home. This was sort of before I even like told people that I played the drums. But I came home from that concert, and my folks had a couple of the Stevie Wonder records, and I would just listen to those over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And I just was like, what the hell? And then I found out that he played all the instruments on them. And I was like,
I was going to ask,
what the heck?
Yeah. Wow.
So then it seemed like, well, man, anything is possible. Then, my folks moved to North Carolina when I was almost 10. Bought like some land in Western North Carolina. We moved from Massachusetts to North Carolina. And then I kind of discovered Kiss. Oddly enough, the kids in my high school or in my grade school, like I guess I was in 5th grade when I moved to North Carolina. And they were into like Southern rock, like Molly Hatchet was big, but Leonard Skinner, of course. But then like hard rock too, like AC/DC and Kiss. And so I was like, well, let me check out some AC/DC and Kiss. And I mean, Kiss just with like the first few things I heard, I think were like studio records, but then I heard Kiss Alive 1, and I was like, oh damn, it like this is it. Like, I don't know. I think at first I was like just in love with Ace Frehley's guitar playing, because man, he just slays on that record. So he's just like firing it up.
It's literally on fire.
I mean, just like
there's smoke coming out of those pickups.
I know, man.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know if I was like just enamored with Peter Criss much. I thought he was a fine drummer, but I just loved like that they were like these sort of like guys who were pretending to be Godzilla on stage, playing this stomping like boogie rock, and it just appealed to me. So, and I think around the same time, I discovered like I don't know, 2112 or Fly By Night by Rush too, and you know what else was really big? Like the Gap Band. The Gap Band 4 with like Burn Rubber, just like that drumming. I was just like, I don't know, it just really appealed to me. So, yeah.
Wow. So it's a wide range. I love it though. I mean, it definitely paints the picture. You know what I mean? I think for people that know your musical output now, I think you can, sowing the seeds. But I'm still fascinated with the idea of just saying, oh yeah, I'm a drummer. And would people take you? Was that like I guess, how do we say it? Was that a way of saying, oh, I want to jam, or I want to be, I'm a drummer, and then were you trying to solicit bands to play with in that sense, or is that what it led to? But if you go around saying you're a drummer, eventually somebody's going to be like, hey, guess what? I play guitar, or I play bass.
Well, the first thing that happened that sort of made me go like, okay, I better like learn how to play the drums, was a friend of my folks came to visit and our place in North Carolina, and I was like, oh, I'm a drummer, and he's like, oh man, I got a snare drum and some sticks in the car, like let's play a little, show me what you got. And I was like, and I like like whatever, and then I was like, okay, I gotta get some sticks and somehow figure out how to get some drums. So I did get some sticks. My folks were like, okay, we'll get you some sticks and a practice pad. And then for a while, it was like, I lived in a commune, so like I couldn't make a ton of noise, like, or at least I didn't think so. And but that later, they were very kind and let me make a lot of noise for a long time, bless their hearts. But at first it was just like, I had books on my shelf, and I would take books and stack them at like different piles of different heights around my table on my desk. And I would listen to whatever, Rush or Kiss or Andy Gibb or what, it didn't really matter. I was just like, and I would just play like on the books, like, like pretending that they were tom-toms or whatever, rolling around, just kind of getting some movement around and figuring out, okay, how does this work? You move around from one piece to another. And there was like a like a local jam session that happened with friends of my parents. Every week there was like a sort of rotating potluck, and like there was all these people would have like volleyball posts in their yard, and then there was like one volleyball net and like a bag with some volleyball gear, and so people would pass the volleyball net around and the ball and the volleyballs, and they would have potluck lunch and play, and then get into some crazy volleyball, and then at my friend David and Camille Schaefer's place, David had an old Rogers drum kit and like a Rhodes piano, and so some people would bring guitars and basses, and there would be sort of like a hippie space jam. And I started kind of sitting in on those jam sessions like once a week on Sundays. And then Dave was like, why don't you come over and let's play a little bit? Or yeah, you want to play along to some Beatles records or something? He like, and then later, like, had some Clash records. I don't know. He was a cool guy, like from Philly, long hair, always wore a beret. He was like the postmaster general of the little town, and like he's just like, hey man, yeah, like, and so he would let me play his Rogers kit, and then I think he came into like another like used Japanese little kit somehow, and he kept it a secret from me but told my dad about it and sold it to my dad, I think for like $90, and my dad gave it to me for Christmas one year.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, so I got like a kick drum, a snare drum, and a ride cymbal, maybe a floor tom too. I don't think I had like, or maybe no, like a rack tom, but no floor tom. So kick drum, snare drum, rack tom, cymbal. no hi-hat, no floor tom. And then I just started going in. I guess I was like maybe 12 at that time.
Amazing. And so now you really were a drummer. You weren't just saying you were a drummer. You actually were. That was owning a drum kit makes one a drummer.
This is true. I knew it.
You could join 16 bands right then and there. Like just owning a drum kit is usually how it works, in my experience at least.
Yeah. Then these kids from my school were like the kids that I had in like 5th grade sort of bonded with about like Kiss and AC/DC and whatever. My friend Alan Kirkpatrick got an electric guitar, and my other friend Danny had an acoustic guitar. And Danny's dad had like a fish farm. He was raising trout in these like trout farm ponds, and so there was like a little sort of building off to the side of his house with freezers and kind of like an open space in like this freezer room. So we just would go into the like little freezer room and just play and learn like Flirting with Disaster and I don't know, like just other, I can't, like maybe we would try to play like Dust in the Wind or something.
So cool. That's amazing. And then what about the visual art at this point too? I mean, are you pursuing that or like continuing to progress in that sort of world, or did you pause? Was it a pause and like, switching off kind of thing?
I was always keeping a sketchbook throughout the whole thing. Always drawing. But it was, it was nothing, I had no like academic, teaching with artwork at all. But I just was drawing because I loved comics and I loved, I was like into like, I was into comics.
That's so cool. Mostly Marvel stuff.
Yeah, I guess Marvel. And then I got into like sort of like the Warren magazine thing, like Creepy and Eerie and Vampirella and that kind of stuff. And then I discovered Heavy Metal magazine, the comic magazine from France or whatever, or Montreal or whatever. I forget where it came out of. And discovered like Mobius and kind of that kind of thing. And so yeah, just was into it.
It's incredible. Yeah, I mean, it sort of goes along with Rush, and there's a certain kind of sci-fi sort of concept art world there too.
I still awesome. Love it. I still love that stuff so much.
Yeah. Have you seen that documentary about Jodorowsky's Dune?
I haven't.
Story?
I haven't.
It's really fun. It must be streaming somewhere, but Mobius did the book, did like the all the graphic, or what do you call them? The thumbnails, I guess, or
cool. Yeah.
So there's a whole script, and Mobius like drew the whole thing out. Like Jodorowsky hired him, and this it's incredible. The drawings are amazing, and a lot of the design that he did there, they show it in the documentary, ended up going to all these other films. It was sort of precursor to Alien and to Star Wars and all these other things.
Yeah,
that people would go on to kind of work on. Masters of the Universe, in fact. Yeah.
But the Jodorowsky Doom never saw the light of day, right? It never got finished or something.
No, it never got made, but there's this Bible, basically I think is what they called it, and it's like a giant Mobius hand-drawn comic book of the whole film, panel by panel. And so that was sort of the only living, sort of product that got made from the film. But it's incredible. If you're a fan of that stuff, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I've been meaning to check that out.
Yeah, I know, right? With all your free time in between everything else you do. People have, someone just asked me last night if I watched the Beatles, Get Back, what's
Yeah.
it, like 8 hours?
Yeah.
Oh God, I could watch things in chunks of like 5 minutes or even 10 minutes if I'm lucky before I fall asleep or have to go do something else. Like it would take me 5 years to finish that thing.
Yeah, I had a friend ask if I had seen it, and I said I hadn't. And he was like, "Man, I'm embarrassed. I've watched it 3 times already."
It's a lucky man with a lot of free time on his hands.
Yeah,
You could do that. One day, it's on my list of things to do when I have nothing to do.
I mean, I've heard it's incredible. I'd love to see it. Yeah.
Yeah. I also have a stack of books that I would like to read one day. Right now I have a 3-year-old and a 9-year-old that kind of occupy most of all of my other time.
Yeah, reading is not allowed right now. No reading.
It's tough. I've tried, and I've read the same first page of a few books. I just keep reading that first page, and then I come back to it. And I just instantly fall asleep. It's the best like sleep aid.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna try to read this Joan Didion book. It's not because that's not a knock on her. It's more just me. Like I'm smart. I used to read books. I'd bring backpacks full of books on tour and rip through them, but those days are long gone.
I've been reading a bunch recently.
Good. What are you reading?
I'm almost done with my youngest kid, Angus. I have a 19 and a 14-year-old. So Angus, and I'm divorced. So the kids are at their mom's a bunch. So I do have some free time. But anyway, so my youngest kid gave me the 3 Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch by Philip K. Dick. So I'm almost done. I'm almost done with that. He gave it to me for Christmas, and I've been reading The Warmth of Other Suns, which is like a story of like African American migration from the South from like the 20s to the 70s.
That sounds amazing.
Oh man, it is a heart-wrenching tale of how awful the things the men do to the other men are. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, maybe.
But it's important.
It's incredible, to know. But I mean, even the I think that's what's interesting too is that I find myself like just lacking the emotional capacity. You know what I mean? I'm still as in this sort of dad zone where I'm at right now in time, and it's like not only my time's limited, but I feel like my emotions are limited. Like I'm kind of in a spot where like I watch something comes on, I'm like I don't think I can feel. It's too heavy.
Yeah.
I'm in a spot. I know, but I'm assuming as the kids age and as I sort of find myself, having the capacity to sort of take on more things, it's tough, man. Even watching the local news, I think I've stopped. I accidentally turned it on the other day. I'm like, oh, I can't do this. It's just so hard when you have little ones out there.
Yeah.
Just kind of mustering the strength to sort of like guide them and sort of shepherd them through their journeys.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's tough. It like kind of wrecks you if I think about it too long or feel, sitting in this. I mean, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know if I'm a callous person or if I'm just so, maybe my world is so insular right at the moment. I'm just like, oh, that's part of my like inability to think or feel.
No, I mean,
I have to laugh. I'm like, I don't know. I'm spoken for. My emotions are all tied up in these little people. I will make room one day to have that, but right now I need to hold that space for those guys.
Yeah, no, I totally relate to that as well.
It's a funny one. People don't tell you about that, before becoming parents, those little subtle things.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier to make a joke about changing diapers or not getting any sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's the bigger sort of ramifications of it all. So you're drumming and with a sketchbook, and then where does it go? Where things start to become, where that becomes the draw. I mean, I guess from kind of teenage sort of interests to life path. Is there a transition to that? Like, how does that progress?
Well, my folks are cool enough that they said, if you want to play the drums, you should probably take some lessons. So I was like, okay. And they set me up with a teacher at this local music store in Asheville, North Carolina. I think it's called Making Music. Making Music. And so I learned sort of the basics of reading notation there. And then I got into high school, and high school had a marching band. But you weren't supposed to march until 10th grade, but I got to the high school in 9th grade, and I was like, I want to audition for like a marching position. And then the band director was like, okay, well, we were not supposed to do this, and he gave me some stuff and I could read it down, and he's like, okay, well, you're marching. And so I started marching, and then playing, and then I kind of upgraded my drum kit from this like blue sparkle, red sparkle, mismatched kit to like I got a Slingerland kit that was all the same finish, and finally got a hi-hat, and there were some people who were regulars at these jam sessions who started a band, and they were doing covers. They were all like, my folks' age, and they had a drummer. The band was called Heartwood, and they had a drummer who played for a while, and he wasn't working out or something. And I think I was like at around age 15, they asked if I wanted to be in the band, and so at 15 I started playing. Like we played like once a month at this bar in Black Mountain, and then we would play other gigs here and there, rehearsed a bunch, and played some weddings and whatever. And I was kind of like making some money and playing the drums, and I think the other people in the band were in their early 30s, late 20s, and I was the youngest in the band, and I just kind of did that all through high school. Played with this kind of covers band, and I moved from Carolina to Los Angeles in '83. My mom and dad split up, and my dad came out here, and I came out here for my senior year of high school, and I in Carolina I had kind of moved from. I was still into all this music, but then what I thought was punk rock at the time. I never really knew about hardcore. I hadn't really heard any like hardcore bands, but we would get sort of what was mainstream, kind of more new wave or whatever, and I thought like, oh, this is punk rock. So I met some friends who were in skateboarding and listening to like Devo and like my friend had like the Vapors record, Nuclear Days, and like I got a hold of like Parallel Lines on cassette, and the first Specials record, and like Elvis Costello, This Year's Model, and then some you remember back in the day when like like Warner Brothers would put out like a compilation of like whatever all the records, and it would have like Judas Priest and
Like a sampler, like a label sampler.
yeah, yeah. So I had some of those records that I can't even remember what bands they were. Like maybe there's like a Clash tune and then a Judas Priest tune and whatever, like on these samplers. So I was kind of just into hard rock and new wave, I guess, and like still funk. Really into, like, Prince came out, and like that first, or not, but like Controversy came out, and Dirty Mind was out at the time, and I was like, damn, this is so slamming. So just kind of all this stuff, like I was really into all these different kinds of music. They all seemed really exciting to me, and practicing with headphones on all the time to cassettes, and just learning all these tunes. And then I came.
Which part of LA were you in?
So this is all in North Carolina.
Gotcha. Okay.
Came out to LA, and met some kids who were into like the Circle Jerks and Black Flag and Suicidal Tendencies, and these were all bands that I had never heard about. I was going to school in Westwood I went to my last senior year at University High in Westwood, and so then there were just like matinee punk shows at the Universal Auditorium. So we would just go. The first show I saw was like Fear, Circle Jerks, Toxic Reasons, the Vandals, and like Sin 34.
I want to say 13. I think you're right, but I don't know. Wait. No, I was thinking of 45 Grave. No, it's in 30.
I think it was Sin 34. Anyway.
Sin 34. Okay.
Anyway, whatever.
I'm sure people are screaming at their podcasting device right now. How can we not know this?
I know it's. I have it right here. But so I saw that, and then I was like, oh damn, like this, like music can just be anything. Sin 34.
Thank God. Okay, we corrected it. See, you can stop yelling at us now.
And just Chuck Biscuits was playing with Circle Jerks at the time, and I don't. Unfortunately, there are no real recordings of him playing with that band, but there are some YouTube videos of him playing with that band. And if you ever want to just get your mind totally blown and your head chopped off, watch those videos, because he was killing it. So, and I was like, oh my God, this is what I'm into. So then I just like, but at the same time, I loved everything else. I was just taking in all the music, the energy, and like the beautiful, like ballistic, like explosion of like Spit Sticks from Fear, and Chuck Biscuits was just totally mind blowing. And then I was still totally into like Prince. I had some Jean-Luc Ponty records, like, so I was kind of listening to some fusion stuff. I got into like the Alan Holdsworth with like Chad Wackerman on drums, and discovered the record Nefertiti by Miles Davis with like Tony Williams. And so I don't know, I was just like taking everything in, and I was just wanted to play all the music. I was into everything.
And then how long until you joined a band in LA?
I never joined a band in LA. I was in LA for 1 year. I practiced all the time. I marched in the band in LA. I jammed with some kids in a couple of times, but I was in the marching band. I was also in like the whatever combo band with like where we would play like rock tunes or whatever. I was switching my drum kit around. Like I was like, I'm gonna play left-handed only, because I'm left-handed. I draw
too easy.
I draw left-handed.
Okay.
So I was like, maybe I should switch around. And I thought that like, I was like, I just want to be able to play like, so I just want to be as fluid and open as possible with like, and so for like a year I switched it to just left-handed drums. And then I switched back and, but I've been thinking about setting a left-handed kit up again. Cause my kid,
just you learned right? Cause that was the way they taught you, even though you were a left-handed player. They just taught you to write. Yeah.
So from actually it was like, I think 11th grade, I switched to left-handed, and then played gigs with like that band Heartwood, like all left-handed. And then I moved out to LA and got in that combo band, and they were like, okay, Herndon, get on the drums. And I went to the drum kit and started to move stuff around, and my band director was like, not in this band. If you want to play the drums, you leave them how they're set up and you play like that. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm playing right-handed again.
That's so unnecessary. Why even make why make it a deal? It's not like one way is better than another way.
I think it was just like time, and how short the class was, and moving stuff around just like made everybody else wait. And he was like, no, like you just play it how they are. So I switched back. And then after I graduated high school, I went back to North Carolina, and lived there for the summer, got a job, got an apartment, skateboarded around the city, acted like a hoodlum, got a mohawk, played in Heartwood again. But that was cool.
But would you spit beer at the audience though? At that point, you're like,
no,
spit water on your drum heads and make it splashy.
No. But you know, in that band, like we played some like Les Paul and Mary Ford tunes, and it was kind of a wide, eclectic mix of tunes, and everybody was super cool, and
just picturing punk John coming back from the coast, coming back from LA, and then trying to fit in with the hippie.
People were like, it's Johnny Hollywood.
yes, with your mohawk. Don't forget about it, babe. Flick a cigarette out their face. I'm out of here.
Totally. After a while was thought I needed to get out of North Carolina. I didn't want to go to college. I wasn't talking about like going back to school, but I met someone who was going to school in Chicago, and they were home for the summer. I guess it was the summer of '84, and they came from Asheville, and they were going to the School of the Art Institute, and we kind of hung out for the summer, and then I just said, as they were leaving back for school, I was like, well, you know, if you ever need a roommate, I'm looking to go somewhere, and I would totally consider Chicago. And I guess like around Christmas, they came back to visit their folks, and they were like, I think we have space in the house if you want to come up. So I just packed my stuff up that week and drove back to Chicago with them in the car. And I just mailed my stuff to the address that they gave me. I packed up some boxes, mailed my drums, and got a suitcase and just got in the car and drove to Chicago, January '85, and then I was there I moved into a house, and some people had a band, and I kind of played with that band, and then played in some other bands, and then I met Doug McCombs, who was playing with 11th Dream Day, and we started playing together a bunch, and it kind of eventually became Tortoise.
What was your take on Chicago? I mean, being from North Carolina with a little bit of LA bad boy vibes. How did Chicago strike you?
Oh, I loved it, man. I loved it immediately. It's I moved to a place only a few blocks from the Cabaret Metro, which was. Have you played the Metro? No
yes.
Age? Yeah. And so, Naked Raygun was playing. Big Black was playing. Got to see those bands. And a lot of touring bands were coming through all the time. So I was going to see punk rock shows and playing. I played with this band for a while called Precious Wax Drippings, and we put out some records, and started opening for bands, and then just toured the East Coast, and we got to open for the Replacements a few times. And Soul Asylum was super burning at the time. That was just sort of right after they transitioned from Loud Fast Rules to Soul Asylum. And I don't know if you know that record, Made to Be Broken. Anyway, it's great. There's still really a great hard rock band. Punk, but I don't know, poppy and kind of twangy, but...
That's cool. No, I remember hearing, that they had more hardcore or kind of more punk, songs prior to their Runaway Train big hit.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. They were a great band back in the day. One of the places that we would go to often to play was Madison, Wisconsin. And I was playing at a show, and I had a skateboard, and I was skateboarding in this hallway of this venue. And I was I don't know, blah, 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 blah. And I fell off the skateboard. The skateboard went sailing down the hall, and then there was some stairs, and all of a sudden this guy jumped off the stairs and onto the skateboard and rode down the hall and then rode back. And it was Dan Bitney from who plays in Tortoise now. But he came up and he gave me the board, and he's like, "Hey, want to go to Half Pipe tomorrow?" And I was like, "Oh shit, yeah." And then it turned out he was playing in this band called the Tar Babies, who at that time had just released their record Respect Your Nightmares on Bone Air Records, produced by Bob Moog, and he was playing drums in that band. And they went on to put 3 or 4 records out on SST. So we became fast friends. And so Precious Wax Drippings would play with Tar Babies, and Tar Babies would come to town and play gigs, and they would stay at our house. And so we're just meeting good friends and making connections. And I don't know, it was great. I loved it.
It's amazing. Did you ever audition for the Red Hot Chili Peppers?
I did. I was playing with my band in Chicago. My girlfriend at the time maybe we were ex at the time, but still friends. Danny Iosello became friends with Flea, maybe somehow, and the rest of the band. I don't know. She's a great drummer herself, and visual artist, and she lives actually. We sort of traded places. She moved to Asheville, and lives there with her husband Tim now. But they played, I think, an early version of Caliphone with Tim Rutilli, and or maybe he did. And anyway, but they're still playing and living there anyway. And so she became friends with them, and it was right around the time Hillel Slovak passed away from, and Jack Irons was the drummer at the time, and he kind of had a nervous breakdown, I think, after Hillel died of overdose, and quit the band. So Danny found out they were looking for a drummer, and kind of rallied people to pitch in money for me to go out and audition, come out here to audition for the band. So it was kind of weird. Like I had to keep it a secret from my band here or there in Chicago. So I was trying to like practice Chili Peppers songs on the side. And I guess it was like right after Uplift Mofo Party Plan came out, or like it was after that record, between that record and Mother's Milk. Obviously, Chad Smith is the drummer on that first drummer for that record, or that was the first record he played on. And yeah, so I flew out, and it was weird. Like Danny was like, you should call Flea. So I was at work in Chicago, and I called him on the work phone. And he was like, yeah, well, I mean, if you can make it out here, like, yeah, we're having auditions. So my cousin lived out here, and I flew out and I stayed at her house and played with those guys. And it was a fun little jam. I don't know. I was like so nervous. And I don't know. I did my best. But they were super cool.
Guitar?
It was Fushante at that time. Yeah.
Okay.
So
they had to replace a guitarist and a drummer basically, at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
I think actually I think Fushante was playing for a while, and what's the Peligro guy from Dead Kennedys drummer?
Yeah, DH. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
He played a few shows with them. He was like in the band, I think, for a while.
Oh man.
But a really short window. So it was with Fushante and DH Peligro. And somehow that didn't work out. So they had already been playing with Fushante.
Okay.
And then so they needed to replace a drummer. I came out, I played, it went, I thought, pretty good. And they were like, we want you to come back. So they're like, 2 days, come back in 2 days. And I came back in 2 days. And then it was when we first played, it was just the three of them and me in a room, in a practice space. And when I came back, there were like maybe 20 people in the room, including Chad Smith.
Brutal.
And so we jammed again, and then Chad came with this. It was his second time playing with the band too, so I think it was kind of a drum off, and he won.
Oh no!
And he totally kicked my ass. So that's great.
That's insane.
And
so it was like you would play a song and then get off the drum kit, and then he would sit down and play the same song, and
no,
see who
no,
could be the flashier, funkier drummer, or I don't.
No. We played like 4 or 5 songs, and then they're like, okay, thanks, and then Chad came up and played 4 or 5 songs. And,
I see. And you hung out still.
I hung out for a little bit.
Did you leave?
I hung out for a little bit, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna bounce. I didn't stay for their whole jam because they were like, thanks, we'll let you know, and I was like, okay. And then
could you feel it at the time, like it wasn't happening for you, or
when I got off the drum kit, and then they were like, okay, Chad, come up, and Chad came up, and I could tell it just seemed like the body language was there with those guys. Like I could tell that they had a connection that I didn't have with them, and it seemed like a much better fit. So
yeah. I mean, yeah, that's wow, that's wild. I can't imagine what a different sort of reality on it doesn't. Yeah, you guys seem like very, very different drummers. Like
for sure. Yeah. And that
that's incredible though.
It was a fun little adventure. I'm happy that Tortoise happened. I think if that had happened, then Tortoise never would have. I would never have been in that group. And for me, that's I think a much more satisfying for who I am as a musician. Group of people to have spent a good chunk of time with.
I agree. I mean, I think the world is a richer place for things having turned out the way they turned out. I think we have a lot more interesting music on the planet than if it had gone the other way. Did you ever keep in touch with them though? Sorry, it's my last Red Hot Chili Peppers question. Was there ever paths crossed, or now that you're out here?
Sort of briefly after that happened, they came to Chicago and put me on the guest list. There was like their Mother's Milk tour, and so I came with some friends and saw the show. And then the next night, or a couple nights later or something, I was in Minneapolis playing a show with my band, and the Flea and Anthony, maybe Fusciante or some other people from. Maybe John didn't come, but some other people from the crew just wound up at our show, and then we were opening for another band, and I remember the other band started playing, and they watched like a song or two, and then mooned the band, and then ran out the door. I was like, hell yeah!
Oh God. Wow. Class act all the way. Amazing. Well, so you said Tortoise, you and Doug were jamming, and then Tortoise just appeared. I mean, I want to get into the visual art too, kind of where you're at that point is with it as well. But I'm just curious if there's anything more about Tortoise sort of appearing out of thin air. I mean, obviously you could have been in all these different, or you were pulled in many different directions, I'm sure at that time. What was it about the Tortoise sort of creation that sort of fit for you, or how did that sort of coalesce and become the thing that you felt was the path forward?
I think one of the things like early on when Doug and I first started jamming, we would jam with this guy Jim from Precious Wax and this other guy Michael Sergeson, who was a guitar player and was in a band called Strange Fruit with Steve Shelley in Kalamazoo or Ann Arbor or something, like a Michigan band, sort of like I think Crucifix era Steve Shelley, but it was sort of like a more arty kind of art rock band that Steve Shelley was involved with. Noisy, like real sort of noisy, clangy guitars, like, and we were like, we should get together and play like Africa Brass by Coltrane, but with just guitars and drums. So we had a bunch of jam sessions where we were just kind of doing that kind of thing, like just playing stuff that wasn't rock. We were, I guess, like at the time, the music I was heavy into Coltrane, heavy into like Mingus. Also really into like the Eno produced Talking Heads Remain in Light record, just like with all the like sort of percolating percussion and keyboard stuff, and really into My Life in the Bush of Ghosts, the David Byrne, Brian Eno thing. And then also kind of discovering like the Anya sound, early Anya sound stuff. Adrian Sherwood produced, like Pounding System by Dub Syndicate and Off the Beaten Track by African Head Charge, and Environmental Studies by African Head Charge. And so thinking, I was just, my head was like, wanted to do something musically that was less about like, and more like something else. And I wasn't sure what it was, but wanted to play, I guess, just kind of more spacious and groove oriented music. And Doug was my BFF at the time. and we were just like hanging out all the time and listening to music. He was super Devo fan, so we bonded on that. And he was just like a cool guy to hang out with, and all about music, and just listening to all this different stuff. And so it just kind of seemed natural that we would get together and play. Michael Sergeson he died. He had a heart attack and died on his steps from his apartment when he's walking his dog one day.
Oh man!
So he was kind of like doing some other stuff anyway. It didn't seem like he was really super into pursuing the music like Doug and I were. So Doug and I were like, why don't we just try to be a duo, like, and just be bass and drums and see what we can see what we can figure out with that. Doug was super into like Minutemen and really loved Dose, the Mike Watt Kira project thing. And it seemed like it would be possible. So we just kind of started writing songs as a duo. And we, after recording or after rehearsing a bunch, we thought like maybe we should try to get some of these songs documented. So we booked some time at Albini's place, which is before Electrical Audio. He had a little recording studio at his house. And we had David Sims from the Jesus Lizard engineer the stuff. And unfortunately, I think those tapes are gone. I think that like they're probably recorded over, but we recorded 4 or 5 things with David Sims at Albini's. And David Sims was super busy with Jesus Lizard, so the stuff kind of kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. And then our friend Brad Wood had a recording studio up the street from where I was living and working, a recording studio called Idful Music. And so we arranged to book some time at Brad's. Brad's was an awesome guy and just let us come and hang out at his recording studio. He had a little lounge area, so I would just find myself there 3 or 4 times a week and just hanging out in the lounge for hours at a time, talking about music with Brad. And Brian Deck was I think he was drummer in California for a long time, was an engineer there too. And anyway, so we booked some time to do some recording at Brad's place. And we recorded one day, I think, and we had another day booked a couple weeks later or something. And in that window of time, Doug had been talking with Bundy Brown, and Bundy and John were playing at that time, I think, in Bastro together. And Doug told him what we were doing, and then as I think the conversation went on, Bundy seemed really interested in what was happening, and Doug was like, why don't you come to the studio and bring instrument and see what, and maybe get in on some of the playing on this. And Doug and Bundy said, that sounds cool. How about if I bring John McIntyre too? So that the next recording session that we had was with the 4 of us, Doug and Bundy and John and I. And those recordings became the first 2 Tortoise singles.
Wow.
And I think Brad actually played some saxophone on those recordings as well. So that was kind of the beginning of Tortoise. Was we met in the studio, really, and played these weird jams. And it seemed like a really natural and cool and good fit working together. So we just were like, let's play a show. Let's work on these tunes and play a show. So we rehearsed a bunch, got a set together, and we were slotted to open for Tom Cora and the X, the X from Amsterdam. Were playing. They're touring with I think it's Tom Cora, Tony Conrad. No, Tom Cora. Anyway, don't yell at me on the internet either.
Get him.
But then,
this is over my head at that. Yeah, I don't know.
So then, as the fates would have it, the X couldn't get across the border from Canada into the United States. They were held back for some bullshit. And so on the night that we were supposed to play, the X didn't make it to Chicago, and it was at this place called Lounge X, which is owned by Sue Miller, it was a great venue. Unfortunately, closed now. But Sue was like, "How about if we keep the show still, and we'll make it a free show, and Tortoise can just play tonight." So we just kind of got the word out to everybody that it was a free show, and the place was packed with our friends, and we played the first Tortoise show, and it was very weird, and awesome and cool. And we did "Paralyzed" by Gang of Four, and I sang the song and smoked a cigarette while I was singing.
Johnny Hollywood.
That's right.
Coming back.
Coming back to haunt you.
That is so incredible. Wow, I didn't know all that kind of the auspice, of sort of where it all sprang up. I mean, obviously, you guys, everyone comes with, it's a well-known, heavily stacked member group, from a million different great projects, but kind of coming together like that. It's incredible. And and then in the art has it progressed past sketchbook and kind of getting onto canvas work? I mean, where does then tattooing and how does your visual art sort of progress along this way too?
There's a lot of like punk rock flyering making, but. And then I did some t-shirt. There's like a Precious Wax Drippings t-shirt design. I think maybe I did some artwork for an album cover that we did. But not much out of the sketchbook. Really, it was like sketchbook city. And then making pieces for friends. But I was for sure not thinking like I was going to have an art career. But I was thinking that more like along the lines of like people who play in bands and make punk rock flyers and skateboard and scrawl on stuff and maybe do some graffiti. And like, it was kind of just like that, just like caveman. Like mark on sheet.
Look at this. I did this.
Yeah. So it was kind of like that. I met some friends who were like real painters, sort of really kind of going for it, and would hang out at studio, like my friend Tom Billings' studio, and we would paint together a bunch. Like I did a bunch of collaborations, but then like the music always like took over, and art work just kind of seemed like something that was an outlet for something, but I didn't really know what I was going for with it. And music was busy. It was busy for a long time, and then it got slow. We started to have like more time between records. People started having kids, and then I was for a long time I was supplementing my income from making music with bartending. I bartended at this place, the Rainbow Club, which is a really amazing club, bar, little tavern in Chicago. And if you go to Chicago, and you should go to that place because the people there are amazing and awesome. And that's where I met Doug, and I lived upstairs with Michael Sergeson. I think it's where I met John McIntyre and Bundy. It's a great John Haggerty from Naked Ray Gun worked there with me. It's just a great hub of music and artists and musicians and artists, and weirdos hanging out at this place. It was like the central location. So I bartended there for like 25 years. And after that, I was like, okay, this is enough. I can't do this anymore. So 20 years. And so I retired from the Rainbow Club, and then I was just kind of like, what am I going to do for money? Music was bringing in some cash, and I was trying to avoid getting a job. So I kind of started making more artwork, and selling little pieces here and there, little drawings. And about the same time, I discovered a couple of tattooers that I really felt a kinship with. There's this guy, Liam Sparks, who I think runs a tattoo shop now in London called Old Habits. And there's this guy called Duncan X, who I think now actually works at Liam's shop. He was at a different shop for a long time. I saw their work online, and I thought, oh man, tattooing has become this way of making the drawings had changed so much from what I remember like typical kind of 80s tattoo flash to look like. And I started finding people who were that I felt like I could draw like. I felt like that is something that I would like to do. It's less about like I don't know. And I don't mean anything against like I love all of tattooing, not all of it, but I have a deep admiration for the original, like the symbolism from like early Flash, like typical like American Flash drawings, like roses and etc. But these people were doing something that sort of made me aware, and I'm sure that they were just in a long line of people who had come to that point, but they made me aware that there was some other stuff going on in tattooing, and I thought this could be interesting, and I also thought maybe it could bring in some money. So I one of the things I also liked about it, I'll backtrack. So my friend Serena Lander was tattooing in Chicago, and she had never really worked at a shop. She had but also tattooing had been her job, her only job since high school. She started tattooing in high school at her friend's. She told me her brother was a bike messenger, and she got a tattoo machine, and so all of a sudden she had like 300 people who just wanted tattoos from her because she knew all the bike messengers. So she started tattooing and just tattooed out of her house and never worked at a shop. But she was John McIntyre's roommate for a while. I think most of John's tattoos are from Serena. I have a few tattoos from her. And I called her up and I was like, I've been looking at these guys that I really like tattooing, and I'm wondering if you could maybe help me and walk me through like what's the process of getting started. So she was like, yeah, come over to my studio and bring a drawing of yours that you would like to tattoo on yourself and I'll walk you through it. I'll show you how to set up a machine, and I'll walk you through the process. So I did that, and I tattooed my leg, and she helped me, and she was like, after I did it, she was like, I think this is a good fit for you. I think that you could do this. Like, if you're interested, like I'll give you whatever help I can. I'll be open with my information, which is strange, which is uncommon, I should say, in the tattoo community. Most people, especially if you're somebody who's worked in a shop for a long time, are very closed about passing any information about tattooing to another person, and I think that's just been historically the case, and I'm not sure why that is. But that's just how it is. Anyway, Serena was super open, and one of the things I liked about getting into tattooing is it really kicked my ass in terms of like rendering and finishing some drawings. Like, you know, you can kind of like poke around in your sketchbook forever and ever and ever, but then when it comes time to like, oh, I have to render a drawing to present to somebody as a possible tattoo, or like draw some flash that people can pick from. It was a real ass kicker in a good way, to just like, you gotta conceive and finalize some drawings, and I think that was really good for me. I owe all of these paintings that you see to tattooing. I wouldn't be the artist that I am now, and I started late. But anyway, I wouldn't be the artist I am now if it hadn't been for getting involved in the tattooing world. That's for sure.
Man, that's amazing. I don't want to take up your entire evening. You've been so generous with your time to sit here and talk with me. I have two more thoughts left, and then I'll let you get on with your life, so you can have a beautiful weekend. But thank you. Thanks for sitting down. This has been incredible.
Man, thank you, Randy, so much.
Oh, this is amazing. I wanted to ask the cover of Tortoise's record TNT. This is your artwork. Can you tell me a little bit about that figure and sort of how that came about and sort of what that sort of legacy has been since then? But what are the origins of that cover and that artwork?
We were working on the TNT record, and John we were all living together, or let's see, Doug and John and Jeff and I, and then another guy who wasn't in the band, all shared a loft space in Chicago. And John started, he got a gig doing a soundtrack for a movie called Reach the Rock, John Hughes Jr. movie. And I think that was like a well-paying gig. So he bought a Pro Tools system and set up a studio in our loft. So we were recording TNT in the loft space. It was the first record because Millions Now Living was recorded at IDFL. The first record was recorded at IDFL. So this was the first record that we were recording at, actually, Gamera. The little Gamera EP was recorded at our place. So we started to work on, started that record, and John would burn CDs for us as reference. So I got my CD reference, and I just drew that character at the kitchen table on the little CD booklet thing, that as you see it, pretty much like with a slight alteration in the whatever it didn't say like digipack or whatever, it's like, but it was just a little Sharpie drawing on the CD cover piece, and I was just kind of kicking around the house, and when the record was finished, we were thinking about artwork. Doug was like, I think we should use that. So that's how that came. Really, it wasn't conceived as a thing for the record. Really, it was just like a 2-second sketch on the thing.
And had you drawn other sketches on other reference CDs, or this was just one and done? Are there other alternates that could have been it?
No, just one and done.
Amazing.
Yeah. or maybe there were others. I don't know, but that one just hit the mark for some reason.
That's incredible. And then I've noticed just in following you on Instagram stuff that people will request this as a tattoo from you, or is this a special friends only? Because obviously that record is a groundbreaking seminal record, I think, for the group.
It's definitely not for friends only. It's I'll do it on whoever wants it. But some good friends have gotten it. But also some strangers have gotten it that I've become friends with, I guess, since doing it. And I've seen it on people while being on tour. People will be in the crowd, and you can see they'll have a TNT tattoo
that you didn't do.
So
they've taken other people to other places and has.
Yeah,
wow,
for sure. It translates real well from to a tattoo. It's real simple line drawing, so it's not hard to do. So it's cool that people want to get it. It's cool.
I can't imagine of something I drew that anybody would ever want to get tattooed on them. It's it would appall me but I'm not a. Oh my God,
you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. People want anything tattooed on them.
I think No Age has had a few lyrics tattooed on them. I don't think any of the artwork that we've done has gotten tattooed, but there have been lyrics, which I take no credit in because I have nothing to do with that. That's a Dean creation. So that's cool.
That's amazing. I mean, it would be hard to get any Tortoise lyrics tattooed on you.
Right. Well, it's the song titles, I suppose.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, John, the last thing that I've been doing here, and it's a bit of the theater of the mind, if you don't mind going with me on this journey. I call it the gear corner. So if you would, we're going to leave the recording studio. We're going to walk down the hall here, and we're going to open up a room that's going to have, let's say, 5 pieces of gear that you use in all of your pursuits. If you only had 5 pieces of gear for, visual art, tattooing, and drums, as well as anything else, that you need in your life, we're going to find those 5 pieces of gear there. Are you ready to go?
Oh, yeah. I'm ready.
All right, let's go. Hold on. I'm going to close this door, open this door. We're walking. Don't mind the smell. It's a hallway there. Thank you. I do need to get some Foley for this part. Oh, here we go. We're opening. Gear corner's opening. John Herndon, what is in your gear corner?
There's a really beautiful drum kit by CNC out of Kansas City that I would definitely have to have with me.
What do you like about their drums? Tell me a little bit about CNC. What makes them different than other drums?
They are infused with the magical spiritual goodness of Bill and Jake Cardwell, who are the makers of the drums, and two of the finest humans on the planet. and you can just feel the love in the instruments. They they put so much care and attention into, and Bill, the drum builder, the Jake's dad, has been doing it for so long, and he's so knowledgeable about building drums, and he's just a really great guy to talk to, and I don't know, they just sound like they've been packed full of love, and I don't know, they resonate
Beautiful.
with the spirit of those guys, and I find that real beautiful.
Cool. Okay, what else we got here?
We have the Moog Voyager, which is the first synthesizer that I ever bought, and it's it was built in Asheville, North Carolina, my hometown, and Bob Moog was a friend of my folks, and so he would come over to our place sometimes for potlucks, and was at my sister's wedding. His daughter worked at my folks' store for a long time.
Oh my God.
And he was just a really cool guy to hang around with, who had a lot of great stories. And when they made the Voyager, I signed up to buy one of the first ones, so I got a signed copy. I got the signed edition, and the insides were tuned by Bob himself when it was coming out. So I have that. Let's
That's
see
incredible.
what else. I would say there's a pile of this acrylic gouache that I really love to work with. It's this is Holbein acrylic gouache. So gouache is just like traditionally is like a real thick, pasty watercolor that comes in a tube rather than a block. But with this acrylic gouache, it when it dries, and then you re-wet it with water, it doesn't reactivate the paint. So you can layer and layer and layer and layer and layer, and it's pretty opaque, and the colors are real vibrant. And that's what all these paintings that you see in the back are done with. Yeah, it's my favorite paint to work with. So that's three things, right?
That's three, yeah.
So there's a computer that has Ableton Live installed, which is my go-to recording application software of choice. I've been using it since probably like first or second version of the software, and I love it. And I feel like I can move around real good with it, and it sounds real good, and it's real flexible, and Max is a real flexible environment if you want to get into like being a nerd about stuff, which I never do, but if it's always there if I want to. There's also a little granular sampler made by Bastel Instruments called the Micro Granny, that I would have to bring along with, because it's just a really fun little sampler. It's 12-bit, but it's granular. And so, and all of the granular modes are accessible through different MIDI. So you can control with, like, if you have Ableton and you want to control like the sizes of the grains or how they're being distributed, you can do that all with MIDI. It's got a little built-in mic and it's got a little built-in speaker. And it's battery powered if you want to use it like that. And it's all over the Grape Dope record. That's the record. That record was made pretty much with Ableton, the Voyager, and the Micro Granny. I
just love the idea of a tiny,
and the drum kit.
The tiny granny, the micro granny.
Yeah.
I love it. Are you proficient in MIDI programming?
Yeah, I really just use it for as pedestrian as possible. You know, like you plug this thing in and you can play it with a keyboard, and that's all I really need to know.
Amazing. Well, John, thank you so much for
being a
guest.
You.
This is I could do this for hours, but we will definitely have to jam some more and play some more in the future.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks. Thanks for asking me to play at Zebulon. That was really great fun.
Oh yeah. That was so much fun. Thank you for coming on.
Man, hearing Dean really blew my mind too. Like, seeing his set was totally amazing.
Yeah, it's funny. He's become a MIDI person. That's sort of his new trip on that thing that he's doing for his solo stuff.
It was great,
Very
man.
cool.
You sounded so great.
No, you're too kind.
Hell yeah.
Thank you for being on. I appreciate
Thanks, Randy. Appreciate it.
Yes, there he is, Mr. John Herndon. How awesome is he, right? What a journey. It's so exciting hearing about all of his incredible musical adventures on, both coasts and in the North Coast of Chicago. I really can't thank him enough for sitting down and talking and sharing all those rad stories. And thank you for tuning in and listening. I will see you next time.